Now at 6, a live look tonight at Capitol Hill. We are just moments away from President Donald Trump's third State of the Union address to a bitterly divided nation before a democratically controlled House that has just impeached him and a split Congress where he is currently on trial.
But tonight, it will be the president's chance to hammer home his message of prosperity and progress to the people of America.
Good evening. I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Welcome to KTLA's special coverage of the State of the Union.
Tonight, President Trump is expected to lay out his agenda to the American people and tout his administration's accomplishments over the last 3 years.
But there is a cloud hanging over the White House and this presidency. He is expected, though, to be acquitted in his impeachment trial tomorrow in the Senate.
Tonight, Republicans are urging the president not to mention the impeachment in his address.
Here is what is expected for us tonight. We have our analyst with us here to talk about what we can expect in tonight's State of the Union address, Matt Klink. Matt,
Hi.
Nice to see you here.
Thank you.
There's so much going on here, and certainly, Matt, what we're looking at is a president going into the State of the Union address with a pretty good week. Yesterday, with the Iowa caucuses, a bit of a debacle, and then tomorrow he's expected to get acquitted in the Senate impeachment trial. We expect this speech to be very optimistic.
The president has been told to focus on the good state of the economy, how the United States is on a forward-looking trajectory. The question is will he bring up the impeachment vote tomorrow and spike the ball before he scores the touchdown? The vote hasn't happened yet. His staff has said focus on the positive.
If past is precedent, President Clinton did not mention impeachment that was ongoing during his 1999 State of the Union address. But when it comes to the president, President Trump, even his closest advisors, cannot say for certain that he will not veer from the script.
Correct. Donald Trump he takes his own counsel. He does what he thinks best, and sometimes he just goes with what strikes him. So everything's on the table tonight, Micah.
It is called the Great American Comeback. We have early excerpts from the speech tonight. That is what is the title of this speech. Let's talk a little bit more about what we're learning about how he's using words like being inclusive, which is unusual for President Trump.
Yeah, those are not words that I would really put in the same sentence with Donald Trump, given what he's tried to do with building a wall, talking about stopping illegal immigration and things of that nature. However, he can talk about a booming economy, 94% support among Republicans, the fact that the middle class is making more money, African-American female unemployment at record low levels. There's a lot for him to really talk about.
Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul.
I mean, that was certainly a big surprise for everybody watching. It's unprecedented, really.
I can't remember that happening, and it's a modern-day Monroe Doctrine statement by Donald Trump because, Maduro is a ruthless dictator. The Cubans are involved in one of the wealthiest countries in South America with tons of oil, and they have completely destroyed that country, and the socialist is clinging to power. And we're leading a coalition to hopefully overturn that. That was a very moving moment in the speech.
And a profound emotional moment we saw as well as one of the guests of the President and First Lady, talk show host Rush Limbaugh, who recently was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in the gallery in the middle of the State of the Union address. And there it is from First Lady Melania Trump. Matt, do you recall seeing something like that in recent times?
I've never seen anything like that. And what's interesting here, great swaths of America will love that, but certain parts of America will be appalled that happened and that it happened during the State of the Union.
All right, Matt, thank you.
And there you have first-term Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer giving the Democratic response to President Trump's State of the Union address, and only the first time that we actually heard the word impeachment.
Yeah, Trump showed, I thought for him, good discipline to not bring it up, but I think you saw what the Democrats plan to do. They are going to use Republican votes in swing states to tie that around them and campaign against them all the way through November and make sure that nobody forgets what those votes are.
Michigan, a key battleground state in the presidential election, that not lost on the selection to have Governor Whitmer give the response.
Micah, absolutely. And she also mentioned Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and I don't think Ohio was in play this year, but she brought up Ohio because of the number of blue-collar workers.
Yeah, certainly. All right. We're going to take a quick break here on the special edition of the KTLA 5 News, and more highlights from President Trump's State of the Union address coming up.
We continue our coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address tonight, obviously with a backdrop of impeachment and a bitterly divided Congress, as we join Matt Klink and sort of break down the aftermath of State of the Union and the reaction that's coming in. Clearly, there is a division. It is highlighted perhaps most succinctly with the president and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Their friction, they haven't spoken since October, friction that continued tonight, as we saw the president clearly snubbing the House Speaker in this moment, Matt.
She tries to shake his hand.
Yeah.
He turns around, you know, and goes on about his business. And she actually didn't even do the normal introduction for him as well.
Correct. Yeah, it was a little frosty up on the dais
frosty
for that speech.
Yeah.
And
you can see also with the Democratic response, it's also, you know, continuing. They're saying, look, this is time for us to take action. There's dishonesty, there's division, and that was obviously very different from the State of the Union address that we just saw, which was full of optimism and so forth.
I think you saw two competing narratives tonight that you're going to see play out between now and the first Tuesday in November. Part of Donald Trump's message and what he wants members of Congress to run on is that long list of accomplishments. I mean, in the speech, there were 3 pages of economic accomplishments alone. The Democrats are going to say, is it really as good as you think it is? Don't believe what they're telling you. A good stock market doesn't mean that everyone benefits. It's not inclusive, to use that word that Trump used twice tonight. And I think tomorrow night, assuming that Donald Trump is not convicted of impeachment, you're going to see the hammer that Trump will use on members of Congress. So tonight for him was all about being positive.
And an opportunity to sort of pour the pavement for the race to November 3rd. As you mentioned, 3 pages of economic success he's touting. This was 20-plus minutes of a speech that ran 78 minutes.
Oh, absolutely, Micah. And this is what the members want. They want to go back to their districts and talk about how good things are and how things are different than they were in 2017 when the Trump team took over. They need that, they believe, to get reelected. And the Democrats are going to push hard to create a different narrative that things are not good and that Donald Trump is divisive.
The Carville line, the economy's stupid, is coming back.
Yeah. Well, we want to go over to this excerpt from his speech where he talks about how, you know, he's done his job. He's kept his promises. Let's take a listen.
But unlike so many who came before me, I keep my promises. We did our job.
And you could see Nancy Pelosi behind him, you know, shaking her head. That's, you know, obviously not what she feels.
And, you know, every elected official, when they run for office, they make promises. And the public holds you accountable for them. Now, with the economy, you can kind of fudge numbers and you can make statistics work for you. There will be plenty of people who will go out and talk about how great things are. But I think you saw from the governor of Michigan tonight, the Democrats will turn that on its head and say, but is it really that good? It's not inclusive. Working class people are still struggling and the rich have gotten richer, which is also true.
The president tonight calling on Congress to act on immigration reform. That doesn't stand a chance, particularly in an election year, though he was talking about his immigration position and policy and a message for sanctuary cities and states as well.
I ask Congress to pass the Justice for Victims of Sanctuary Cities Act immediately. The United States of America should be a sanctuary for law-abiding Americans, not criminal aliens.
And there you have it. You know, he was highlighting, you know, one of the a criminal alien who had come here and gone on a murderous rampage, which was very graphic right before that bite. You know, we know how people are going to react to this. It's one way or the other.
Well, California, by and large, is very accepting of immigrants. They're woven into the fabric of our society. But you get to other parts of the United States that aren't along a border, it's a completely different perspective. And this is one of those issues that there's no middle ground. You're either here or here. And Donald Trump knows where his base is.
Yeah, calling out California for the sanctuary, being a sanctuary state, and also mentioning New York.
New York, exactly. And I'm surprised he didn't mention both Democratic governor by name in his criticism.
The president tonight wrapping himself not only in economic prosperity, but in patriotism, a very touching moment. He had a young man, a 13-year-old, who happens to be the great-grandson of one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen. This young man is accomplished, and the president describes him as potentially the first recruit for the Space Force.
In the gallery tonight, we have a young gentleman, and what he wants so badly, 13 years old, Ian Lawnfay. He's an 8th grader from Arizona. Ian, please stand up. Ian has always dreamed of going to space. He was the first in his class and among the youngest at an aviation academy. He aspires to go to the Air Force Academy, and then he has his eye on the Space Force. As Ian says, most people look up at space. I want to look down on the world. But sitting behind Ian tonight is his greatest hero of them all, Charles McGee. Charles is one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, the first black fighter pilots, and he also happens to be Ian's great-grandfather. On December 7th, Charles celebrated his 100th birthday. A few weeks ago, I signed a bill promoting Charles McGee to Brigadier General, and earlier today, I pinned the stars on his shoulders in the Oval Office. General McGee, our nation salutes you. Thank you, sir.
This you cannot argue with.
How are you not moved by that?
Yeah.
It was beautiful. He connects the past, the Tuskegee Airmen, commonly known as the Red Tails, with his great-grandson. It was beautiful. I mean, we gasped when we were watching it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, to be part of the Space Force in the
Yes.
future.
Among the president's chief aims tonight at his State of the Union address, set the tone for his re-election in November. Matt Klink here, final thoughts on the president tonight.
This was a campaign speech, plain and simple. Donald Trump's philosophy tonight was success is the best revenge. He spent 20 minutes on the economy alone, I think finally listening to his advisors to this is what you've got to do. And he also sharply contrasted his vision of America with the Democratic vision.
Still so many points that we didn't get to hit, especially on health care, foreign affairs,
policy,
exactly, and national security. But of course, we're going to have a full wrap-up of the president's speech tonight on the KTLA News at 10 and 11.
You bet. Continued reaction throughout the night on KTLA.com. We'll see you back here tonight.